I'd like to welcome everybody to the Medical Marijuana Awareness Seminar. This particular topic, which is Can Medical Marijuana Help You, is really a personalized webinar. It's something where we would really like a lot of you folks to be able to send in questions, ask us if it can help you, ask us about your particular situation. Medical marijuana, it covers a wide range of topics, and of course, as we know, this is serious for a lot of people. And so this is something where a lot of the webinars look at different conditions. This one we just talk about, is it effective, is it safe, and more importantly, is it for you? So please feel free to ask questions and let us know what you're thinking. More important, and by the way, to ask questions, down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little Q&A button. That Q&A button is, if you click on that, you'll be able to ask questions. There is a chat button, but we're really going to follow more of the Q&A than we are going to be the chat for this. I'm honored and privileged to have somebody who I think can really help us address this particular subject. Arnetra, you're from Columbia Care, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you're going to help us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Mark. Again, my name is Arnetra Shettleworth, and I am the VP of Operations for Florida for Columbia Care. So right now we have 14 dispensaries, 10 open and 2 cultivation sites. And hopefully tonight we're able to answer a lot of those questions that you may have around medical marijuana and how it can help you. So get your questions ready, and Mark and I will be all set for you.
Great. Yeah, like I said, this particular webinar is more for you than anybody else. What I wanted to do was I wanted to start by I'll put some slides up. We're not going to try to make this slideware, but I do think that it would be helpful to be able to have a few slides of background to be able to set the stage for a number of the things that we're talking about. So with that, I'm going to bring a few slides into play. This is something that's important, and that is that whenever you're looking at anything that has to do with your body and your health, we recommend that you take a look and you consult with a physician. It's important that, especially if you have a lifestyle medical condition, that you have a doctor involved. And what we're doing today is we're talking about the safe use of medical cannabis. I know there's a lot of people that talk about, pot and using it and that type of thing. I think the question becomes, if this is a medicine and it's something that can help you, where do I get the information? And that's what this is all about. And I know that this is a sensitive subject. I know it says there's no testimonials, and I'm going to break that by showing you a testimonial right up front, because I found one that I thought would be appropriate for today. But I think it's more importantly that there's no peer pressure on this. We're all practitioners, advocates, patients. This is the idea that we bring our ideas together and come up with some solutions or come up with some ideas that can help in the marketplace itself. So with that, let me go here. This is a video that I thought you'd enjoy. It kind of helps sets the tone.
Austin would have dozens to hundreds of seizures every single day. None of the prescriptions would work. One pill almost killed our son.
I've had 3 back surgeries, and I was on opioids for 15 years. It was a very dark, very depressive time in my life.
After my injury, I felt like I couldn't live with the pain, but I couldn't live with this treatment long term. It was unbearable.
I don't want to live like that anymore. Medical cannabis saved Austin's life.
Cannabis is giving me my life back.
There are families in other states having to watch their children die.
I want to see my brothers and sisters who sacrificed so much for this country have access to the safest treatment possible. This really is an injustice.
It's not just unfair, it's cruel.
And I think the injustice that they're talking about is the fact that medical cannabis, or cannabis in general, is considered to be a Schedule I drug, which means the government says it has no medicinal value. I want to address that for a second. In my line of business, a lot of people come up and ask me what a medical marijuana patient is. And of course, we have some stereotypes where we think about Willie and we think about Snoop Dogg. But in reality, most of the people that I run into, most of the people that I work with are veterans. They're senior citizens. They're business executives. They're people that have children that have epileptic seizures or autism. Then they're using medical cannabis to be able to address their lifestyle medical condition and basically be able to get their life back. And I think that's the important thing to point out, is that the people that you see using medical cannabis look like you and me. They're just regular people. They're not anything special. In fact, I had an email this week from a gentleman who was one of his brothers called him a pothead, and I basically said, "You're not a pothead. You're using some natural medicines that are helping you." He's probably more jealous than anything else, which I think in that particular case was true. Does it work? Well, here's a couple of testimonials that I think I'm going to put up, and I think the testimonials really speak for themselves. The first one is a patient that it had a lot of anxiety, had PTSD, got to a point where she had trouble driving, had trouble working. When she got get back into medical cannabis, got her dosing correct, she was able to drive. She's able to maintain a job. She's been able to get her life back, and that's really important. In the bottom one that you see here, this is a person that had aphakial pain, and she went to a number of neurologists. There really wasn't a lot being done. Stepping in and using medical cannabis, now what she does is she have the relief. She's able to go 2 to 8 hours to be able to have her pain go away, have her symptoms go away, and she's able to get her life back, enjoy life, and really medical cannabis has made her life. And we hear that quite a bit, that medical cannabis gets your life back, and that's something that we all want to take a look at. So how did we get here? How did medical cannabis become illegal? Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to point out that between 1840 and really 1938, almost 100 years, cannabis was part of the pharmacopoeia of the AMA. In other words, doctors prescribed a lot of medicines that were cannabis based. What happened was we had an influx of immigrants into Louisiana and Texas, and at that particular time, the question was how do you control them? And they were noticing that especially the Mexican population was using marijuana, smoking marijuana. So what they did was they made marijuana illegal to be able to try to control the population. They took a page out of the book of San Francisco to control it with opium. What they didn't realize when they did that was that they were taking that marijuana was cannabis. And what they did was they took out of the doctor's pharmacopoeia book, literally something that was used 38% of the time. And so in 1970, that was declared illegal, and they had an attorney general, his name was Schaefer. What Schaefer did was he wanted to get proof as to what to do about medical cannabis. And this was under the Nixon administration. And he spent a year, had a group spend a year. They took a year, they looked at medical cannabis, and they came back and they debunked almost everything. No one was dying from lower doses. There was no evidence of a gateway drug. It wasn't innocuous. It wasn't a public threat to health. And that's what's the answer of that particular report. Now, Nixon at that time had a problem with the Vietnam War and the riots going on with that. And he also had racial riots going on. So what he did was he threw that report out the window and made cannabis a Schedule I drug, again, to more control the population than to help the population. And when you go back and you look at the people that were involved in it, I'll take John Ehrlichman. John Ehrlichman was the person in charge of domestic policy. One of the questions is they asked him, which he actually came out and admitted, and did you know you were lying? And he said, of course we did. They knew exactly what they were doing. And that's the problem, is that what they did at that point in making that decision literally affected the lives of thousands, maybe millions of people. If they'd have made the right decision at that point in time, we'd have been way down the road with cannabis, making it as a medicine that could have helped a lot of people. Instead, what we did was we caused in the United States a blockage of research and access that's really hurt a lot of people. And the irony is that even though we're saying that it's a Schedule I drug, it doesn't do anything for you, the United States government went out and got a patent in 2003 on it. So you can see the saying one thing and doing another is what the government's been doing for a long time, basically over 50 years. And what we did was, what's interesting is the United States government funded research into medical marijuana starting in 1964. I'm going to say that again. Our government, your tax money, my tax money, has been paying for research into medical cannabis since 1964. And what they did is they went to a gentleman named Raphael Mechoulam, and Raphael Mechoulam started accepting money from the United States government and started looking into medical cannabis. And he took funding for medical cannabis up until the year 2010, he personally, his research group. We still fund medical marijuana research in Israel, and we fund it through the University of Jerusalem and Ben Gurion University. So we still are funding it. But what he did was he corroborated, and he really set up a lot of colleagues in the United States, not in Israel, but US, Canada, Spain, number of places. He's kind of the godfather of medical cannabis as we know it today. And that's what's very important. Meshulam was the one who led a lot of the experts and a lot of the research into cannabinoids. And there's a couple of other researchers that were working with him that actually are the ones who found out that how the endocannabinoid system was tied to the brain, how it was tied to our system of being able to work. And so we actually have a lot of research that's been done. I want to point out that all this research was put into the United States research that was called PubMed, which is where all the research is studied, is there. And so we can find a lot of that that's available. And that's why I find it interesting that we say there's not enough research, but we've been doing a lot of research on it. Let me point out here, excuse me, that right now we have actually, it's over 33,000 studies going on with medical cannabis, but almost all of those are from outside the United States. There are some anecdotal studies here in the United States that are out there, but if you take a look at cannabis' study and you take a look at it versus things like hydrocodone and Adderall, there's a lot of research that's been done. And of course, we also know that epilepsy and medical cannabis has been studied, as well as epilepsy in general. So there is medical research, and I always get a kick out of politicians that say we need more research, which, by the way, I agree with. We definitely need more research, and we need to know more about this. But to say that there's no research out there when pharma drugs have considerably less research being done and they're legal is kind of just say something that let's just say we're talking with two faces. Let's put it that way. What's interesting is when you take a look at the opioid epidemic and you look at what's happened, this is the poisoning, this is how many people died using those particular drugs. And so we have right now about 113 people a day dying from opioids. Even today, that's what's happening that's out there. And if you take a look at this blue line, that's what this indicates right here. Now this goes in 2014, and they basically stopped publishing this chart after 2014 because this chart was going off the charts. If you take a look at this little red line down here, this is heroin. And back in about 2010, there were some thoughts that maybe opioids weren't good for you, so they started cutting back on opioids. But the problem was, even though the government said, we want you to stop using the opioids, the pain didn't go away. In other words, if you had an auto accident, if you were a veteran, if you'd had some sort of lifestyle medical conditions, just because the government says opioids aren't available doesn't mean your pain goes away. And so what happened was people turned to heroin to be able to use heroin to be able to control their pain. And there's a lot of people that think, well, these heroin addicts are just these crazy street people. I worked in Silicon Valley for 38 years. I was either a director, general manager, or president of various companies that were out there. And companies, I took a couple companies public, or I was part of the team that took them public, and it was a number of startups companies. So we had people that were professionals. We had people that had families. We had people that were making 6-digit incomes. I had 8 of my friends die from heroin overdoses when I was out in Silicon Valley. And in almost every case, it was because they were in a case where they were in an auto accident, or they were suffering from a war wound, or they had something where they fell off a ladder, or they had some sort of pain, and the pain went away, wouldn't go away. They weren't getting the opioids, so they turned to heroin. And it's a tragic thing to see this. It's, to talk to the families, and it was something that I take very personally. There has to be a solution for people that are in pain. And the government saying it's not there is not the answer. What's interesting, if you look at how medical cannabis is here, the bottom line, if you see medical cannabis, we haven't had any deaths. Here's the number of deaths annually using these different, let's just say, medications or devices or whatever there. We lose 100 people a year from peanuts. Okay, marijuana is safer than peanuts. That's what I find absolutely amazing. And yet we worry about it. This is another chart from the World Health Organization, basically saying the same thing. How much do I have to take in order for you to potentially have a lethal overdose? And what's interesting is if you take a look at 118 cups of coffee a day, puts you on the verge of that. 13 shots of alcohol. If one shot gets you feel it with one shot, 13 will be something that you should worry about. 6 liters of water. But 4 years ago in Congress, they asked somebody from the CDC, how much cannabis or how much weed would you have to smoke or we have to take in order for it to be legal? And the researcher said, we don't have any evidence of that. You can't die from it. And jokingly, he came out and said you'd have to basically consume 1,500 pounds of cannabis in 15 minutes. And that was meant as a joke. Interestingly enough, because it was in the public testimony, it's got listed as weeds threshold for death. The interesting thing is you could 1,500 pounds of anything will kill you in 15 minutes. So what I'm trying to point out here is it for you? The answer is you don't have to worry about is it going to kill you? It's not going to kill you. It hasn't. No one's ever died from medical cannabis or medical cannabis. I think it's time that we take a look at really ending the prohibition on cannabis, and that's what a lot of politics in Washington D.C. is all about. That's what a lot of people are pushing, and I'm going to ask you if you'd get on board with that right now. We've talked about the endocannabinoid system in the past, and so the endocannabinoid system is something that Mishulin found out, was researching. What they found out is it parallels the nervous system that's in your body. So how it works, how it can help you is because in your body you have CB1 and CB2 receptors, and the CB1 and CB2 receptors are the ones that are throughout your whole body. If you take a look at what they do, they regulate your pain, your memory, your appetite. They basically control how your body controls itself. Now, the interesting part about this is that the CB1 receptors are in the brain, mainly in the nervous system. The CB2 receptors are mainly in your primary organs and in your immune system. So they're there. And what they do is they work lock and key. They fit very much into, with cannabis. Cannabis helps to be able to help your body regulate itself and provide support for your endocannabinoid system. And how that does that is that when your brain finds out you have a problem, you have swelling, you have pain, whether it's arthritis, whatever it might be, your body then says we have a problem. What it does, it produces through the anandamide, it produces endocannabinoids, and those endocannabinoids are sent through your bloodstream to that part of your body to address that particular situation. Now, in certain situations, and I'll take myself as an example, as a senior citizen, I'm not producing as many endocannabinoids as I should be. So by being able to use a plant-derived endocannabinoid, so using cannabis, I'm able to put some endocannabinoids in my body, be able to bring my levels back up to be able to help address that particular issue. And that's what cannabis does. And I'll show you exactly how that works in just a second. But it's something that's important. This is something that works with your body, not against your body. And it basically helps your body protect itself, control your appetite, control your pain, control your immune system, control your mood, control your memory. Now, I'll point out that there are some synthetics that are out there. You'll hear of them. THC, Mirinol, for example, which is THC, pure THC. It has its place. I recommend not using it unless you are under the care of a doctor, because this is something that is a product that's out there, but it's not something that's commonly used that's in the medical marijuana field. But all this is how you control it. Your body controls itself. Again, your brain figures out there's a problem. What happens is you can take, if you're using cannabis, medical cannabis, all that medical cannabis is then stored in fatty acids that are in your body. When your body finds out there's a problem, it takes those fatty acids, it breaks it down into what they call long chain fatty acids. And what that does, it then produces the endocannabinoids and sends it through your blood system to that part of your body that needs healing. Now, this is important for two reasons. First of all, this is why no one's ever died. It's because it's your body producing its own medicine. It's not a foreign substance. It's not something that's strange to your body. It is your body helping itself. And that's what's really important. That's why no one's ever died from either the recreational or medical use of cannabis. It's something that's not going to hurt your body. Now, the other part about it that's important is your body knows where you have a problem. Your brain, your neurons know where your problem exists. So what's interesting is if you take it, for example, for, let's say you're taking it for a cancer. For example, my mother's taking it for breast cancer. She's in remission right now. What she found out after taking it, after 4 weeks, she went to the doctor for a glaucoma, and the glaucoma was gone. Doctor said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm taking medical cannabis." And he said, "Well, your glaucoma is gone." That's called the entourage effect. Your body knows where you have a problem. And what it does, it produces the medicine it needs to be able to address that. We've had situations where people have taken medical cannabis for arthritis in their hands, and what's happened is the pain in their shoulder or the pain in their back has gone away. That's because your body is using the cannabis to be able to address its issues and be able to help itself out. And this is important because not being to have an alternative where it's not you're not going to die, I think is really, really important that's out there. There's a couple of different ways of getting, especially CBD and cannabis. There's hemp and marijuana. And Arnetra, do you want to kind of address these differences between them and what you see?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sure. So the difference, what you've heard so far is Marc talks a lot about just how it works with your body naturally, but understand that what you all hear on the market are two separate things. You hear the term cannabis, you hear the term marijuana, but you can think they're the same thing, but both are cannabis, but there are two different types of cannabis. So basically you have hemp and then you have marijuana. Hemp is not an illegal substance, i.e. not considered a Schedule I or illicit drug. Hemp is plant-based just like marijuana, but hemp has no psychoactive effects. And you can buy that right off the shelf. Marijuana, on the other hand, it does have psychoactive effects, but you have the THC and you have CBD. CBD does not have psychoactive effects, but it functions in your body in a way that helps you potentially heal yourself. It allows you to maybe help with pain. It allows you to help with maybe certain ailments that you have, just like THC. But THC has the psychoactive effects that would either, you may hear people say the term, it relaxes them, or it may put them to sleep. It may make them feel pretty excited and energetic. But those are the differences. Again, hemp-based versus marijuana. Marijuana, Schedule I drug. Medical patients only can use marijuana legally with a medical card. Hemp is something that you can buy in a store. It is run by the Department of Agriculture.
Right. So the question becomes, and I know that Elaine, you've asked a question about CBD and hemp. We'll answer that in just a second. But if you take a look at what's in cannabis, really you have two different, let's just say, categories. You want to explain that?
Sure. And again, that THC, it is the psychoactive effect. And I'll go ahead and chime in on that one, Elaine. Hemp does have CBD, but it is different. Again, hemp-based products versus medical marijuana. Marijuana itself, even if it's CBD, you have trace amounts of THC. Hemp-based products do not. And so you don't get any type of THC, even in the smallest content. But hemp-based products are considered CBD-based products, but they are just hemp-based.
And that slight bit of THC, that 0.3 level, really helps. It's like 1 and 1 is 3. It really helps bring out and let's just say amplifies the effectiveness of the CBD. That's what's important. If you take a look at what's in medical cannabis, in fact, let's be real specific. You asked the question. So hemp does have CBD in it. And if you'd like to take a look at the yellow area down here, this is primarily the medical properties that you find in hemp. This is more your playing field, Arnetra. Why don't you talk about this?
Yeah. So I know, hopefully, maybe we can make that a little bit bigger, because I'm sure that everybody watching, hopefully you all can see that. But CBD, basically this wheel helps you understand things that CBD can be used for, or things that we have heard, right? Things that we hear that people feel that it works for them. Everything does not work for everybody, but this is still a natural way to assist. CBD still comes in different ratios, different doses, different size milligrams. So for some people, they may only need a smaller amount, and we can then go up to some pretty, much larger amounts, like 50, 60, 70, 80 milligrams in a dose, but it really depends on the person. And as you see the straight CBD, it is a lot around pain. And then you see these other forms that you see up top in green, and I'm going to call it in the section that is somewhat of the little right angle there. You all see that those are a little bit more of a THC and what they're known for. And then you get into a little bit of what people may use hemp-based products for.
Right. So what's really important to understand is that, for example, in the THC part, this is really good to relieve pain, for example. CBD is okay for pain, But if you really have a severe pain, like I have herniated discs in my back, you need more of the THC. The CBD products are not going to really address the pain and get rid of the problem. But I think more importantly, when you put both the CBD and also the THC together, you get what they call the entourage effect. This is where instead of having 108 medical properties, you now have 450 medical properties. And people find that this works for a wide range of issues that they've had, some of which they're really not either aware of or didn't know they could be addressed.
Yeah. And when we think about CBD, for everybody who is on, while it does relieve pain, think about CBD. And again, everybody is different, but think about CBD in a way of just kind of that gnawing, a little annoying pain, but not sharp pain, maybe a little bit more of THC versus, you know what, my mild arthritis pain, not severe, right, not rheumatoid, right, but maybe some semi arthritis. You know what, my wrist hurts when it rains, maybe a little bit of carpal tunnel. My back hurts a little bit, you know, muscle recovery. I have some soreness. That's the type of pain when you think about CBD. But when you look at all these other aspects of CBD, anti-inflammatories, a lot of folks who have severe lower back pain, and I guess I shouldn't say severe, but a lot of people who have lower back pain that may be attributed to an old injury, it allows their body to relax in a way that is not THC driven. But when you start looking into THC, and especially higher doses of THC, it is for more chronic, more intense type of pain. Maybe somebody might say like level 7 out of 10 pain is a little bit more THC, or some of those chronic diseases that we really need to manage, neurological problems, or either gastrointestinal issues, things that will cause people a lot more pain.
Yeah, I mean, in my particular case, I had an automobile accident 4 years ago, and I ended up with 2 herniated discs in my back, but I ended up with 7 in my neck. And that, you know, when you talk about a level of 7 or an 8, when I wake up in the morning, my level of pain is a 7 or an 8. That's just the way it is. And if I cannot operate during the day at that level. Literally within 3 minutes of when I get up, my level of pain is below a 1. And that really helps me quite a bit. And I'll explain how I get there. But I think that's helped me be able to not only control the pain, but I've been able to figure out how to do it by getting my dosing right. Been able to figure out how to do it so that I'm not high, I'm not stoned. I have the pain under control, but I'm able to lead a normal life. And that's what's really important. I'm able to just be myself and be the person, be the professional that I am. In my business, because I'm in the tech business, I have 6 social media networks and 5 websites that I work with. I guess I could be high. Not a that good idea to be high, but I really have to be able to pay attention to a lot of things and watch a lot of issues. And so it really helps me be able to do my job, but and also be able to be myself. And that's what's important to understand. That's how medical marijuana can help you. Now,
and
when
something else,
go ahead.
Something else to share earlier when we were talking about, you know, who's that patient? Who is what is the stigma, or who do you think that patient is? When Marc was saying it's just kind of the average person, you would be surprised at, you know, who that patient is. We have a lot of elderly patients who are just trying to manage pain, appetite control, folks who are just depressed, who have anxiety, that the teacher, you know, the person who is taking care of parents, the person who is so stressed that they have children, you know, spouse, taking care of elderly parents, their job is stressful and they're having trouble with anxiety. That's the normal person. That's your neighbor. That's the person who works at the grocery store. It is just the average person walking down the street who is looking for an alternative way to manage whatever symptom they have that qualifies for the use of medical marijuana.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, they're the average person that's out there. I live in a community that's 55 and over. And then I moved in here 3 years ago, and I told people what I did. They thought Darth Vader arrived. You know, they looked at me like, you know, they go, "Oh man, what's going on?" Let me turn the clock forward. But on the other side of the coin, when we did a few webinars and a few seminars, people said, "Yeah, I have this problem and I have that problem." And And today, there's 118 people in our community that I know of that are on medical cannabis. And every one of them have got their life back because of it. And now, rather than walking in like Darth Vader, I'm kind of like this, I'm like the stormtrooper that walks in. I'm the guy with, at least I have a white uniform on. I literally can't walk through our clubhouse, and mainly I can't even hardly walk through Publix without being asked about a question about medical cannabis, because people have been able to see it as something that's healing and let them get their life back. It's an attitude. And I think once people realize that it's not going to kill anybody and it helps their neighbors, people want to find out what's going on. And that's something that you need to feel comfortable with. Now, on the other side, when I got into this about 6 years ago, all I kept hearing about was sativa and indica. And today, all I hear about is strains. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah.
How that happened?
And so what is interesting is, depending on where you go, for those of you who are very new, you may hear these terms, sativa, indica. And these basically tell you different types of plant structures. And sativa, traditionally tall, and the sativas are and the indicas, are a little bit shorter and a bunchier plant, like really fluffy. However, in the world of today, medical cannabis or even recreational markets, plants are bred just like everything else that we do. And what people are looking for is plants that either have higher potency contents, higher THC, better mixes of a terpene profile. So this sativa versus indica, you don't see it as often where you see that there's something that's the true sativa or the true indica. You see so many hybrids today. And that's where some of the education, some of the conversation is shifting towards terpenes and terpene profiles, because that is the other portion of medical marijuana that's really helping drive how it functions in your body, how it's interacting with the receptors in your endocannabinoid system. So it's a little bit more of a terpene profile.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have on the slide here, it talks about cannabinoids and talks about terpenes. What's interesting is there's been a lot of research where they've been able to take a cannabis strain, cannabis itself, mix it with terpenes. And those terpenes, by the way, terpenes are very similar to aromatherapy. They have different properties. And so having the different properties tied to the cannabis gives you that strain to address a particular situation, whether that's anxiety, whether that's pain, whether that's arthritis, whatever. It's interesting that now all of a sudden you have these different profiles that can help you. I know when I first became a patient 4 years ago for my auto accident, first time I went to the dispensary, I just took what I had, walked in, they had my recommendation from the doctor, and I took what they gave me and went home. And on my second visit, actually my third visit, I got up enough courage to say, out of all the products that you see, like look at the dispensary behind me, you see all the different products. Out of all these different products, how do you know what works for me? How do you know what I should take? And the bud tender, the person behind the counter, said, it's very simple. I'm looking at your recommendations. I'm looking at your medical condition. And based on that, I'm matching it to a terpene profile and some strains that address your particular situation. And it was at that point in time, for me at least, the light bulb went on. This is medicine. This isn't some pot user on the side. This is something that's rifle shooting, targeting something right for my particular situation. And once I understood that, I realized that I could get my dosing right to be able to control my pain and be able to control my situation. Now, that being said, every person's body is different. Remember, your body produces its own medicine. So the metabolism, the way you work, it's all different. This isn't take 2 aspirin and I'll see you in the morning. This is more like, let's try some things. There's a concept in cannabis called go low and go slow. Is that right? You want to comment on that?
Yep. And before I comment on the going slow portion, the cannabinoids that you all saw in the other slide, this is where the cannabinoid profile and the terpene profile really matter, because those cannabinoids are telling you this is what traditionally these particular cannabinoids are helpful for. And then the terpene profiles, we're going to see a little bit later, are what they traditionally produce as far as you know, what they would traditionally do in your body with receptors. So I think for context, I think a way to think about terpenes is, it's funny, somebody said this to me yesterday and I thought it was useful. Just like a wine, what is the term? The sommelier. Just like a wine connoisseur, when you smell wine, people are able to say all of the different components of it. And this is how you smell it. This is how you feel when you drink it. It's the same type of concept around the plant and the terpene, the profile of a plant, just like a profile of wine. And you're able to really decide what works for you. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, it really is interesting. And like I mentioned, it's important that you start, usually people start with a 1-to-1 in 1 THC to 1 CBD to really find out how that helps. One of the things you really don't want to do is some people start with a low dosage and a 1-to-1, and after a week or two, it doesn't work, so they stop. They say medical cannabis doesn't work. Well, what's happened is you need to adjust what cannabinoids you're taking. You need to take a look at the terpenes, the amount and the quantity to be able to really dial it in. And I can tell you, it took me about 2 months to really dial it in. But when I was in such a high level of pain, it was such a huge relief, even during the process of dialing it in, that it was much better than it ever was before. So it's something that you really got to spend a little bit of time with, but work with the dispensary, work with your doctor. They will help you be able to dial in the dosing that you really need.
Yep, and that part's very important because the start low, go slow. It's important because, for example, those who are experiencing very chronic pain or the cancer patient, there's times we do have medical patients who are end of life medical patients, and you know, it may be about a comfort level. But for those who experience some very chronic, very painful conditions, that THC version, right? We have to figure out the right mix for them because something may be too strong.
Right.
We have to understand if somebody still needs to go to work every day. We have to understand if somebody wants to go to sleep while they take their medicine. Do they need to take it during the daytime? And so it's important that we have those type of conversations. It's important that we go slow so we understand how it works in your body. How do you feel? But it does take time, and it is a little bit of give and take. So understand that you get a medical card, you have it in your possession, you go to a dispensary, you buy something. It doesn't mean tomorrow it's just going to miraculously make you feel better. There is some give and take because we don't know yet. But what we do know is based on the symptom that you're trying to alleviate, right? And it's not so much about the disease. And I want to make sure everybody understands that, because clearly in dispensaries, we do help people with certain diseases. However, it's the symptom that we're trying to help them with. And those symptoms matter to us because that is how teams and dispensaries can help figure out what might be right for you at this time, depending on your history of usage or if you're a new patient. And they're able to help recommend 1 or 2 items that you can use in conjunction, or either something that you use singularly to help you with that symptom.
Yep. You know, I'm gonna back up just a little bit because Eileen asked a question that this may help. It says, are CBN and CBG, not THC, also in hemp? In other words, are we getting entourage, or are you getting the entourage of different CBDs in hemp only? You want to address that?
No, I'll let you take that one.
Okay. The answer to your question is hemp usually does not have the CBD, CBDAs, and CBDGs. Those these are mainly found in cannabis, medical or cannabis-based CBD products. Now, there are some people doing work in the hemp industry. There are some hemp manufacturers that are working to be able to put those particular products in there. And I know there are some that advertise that they're there, and I haven't really looked into it that deeply to really figure out if they are or they aren't there. I know there's some claims that are being made, but I do know that you typically, when you're going to the store buying CBD, you're typically getting what's down here in the yellow, and a lot of these come in the medical the marijuana-based or cannabis-based products, not the hemp-based products that are there. You do not get an entourage effect with hemp-based products. Okay, that's something you don't get. And that's what's important, is that if you're trying to address, and I'll use the word pain, in my particular case, I have to deal not only with pain, I have to deal with inflammation. It's really, really important to understand. I need to have a marijuana-based product. The hemp-based products, although they're good, okay, aren't going to address my particular situation. That's not the solution for me. And I
And
know
something that I think something that is really important to remember is this is what makes a medical program medical. Medical programs deal with chronic issues, chronic, malignant chronic concerns. And chronic concerns could be arthritis, could be a back pain, but things that are kind of intermittent, it happens every now and then. That's where the regular CBD off the shelf comes into play, because it's helpful. You may take it in a capsule form and it just helps with muscle recovery. It helps that person who wants to play maybe a sport a little bit better. It may be something that you just use to relax, but when you are trying to get to some more chronic concerns, that is why medical programs exist.
Right, that's a good point. I want to move over here to the terpenes, because this is really the terpenes are kind of like the gas in the gas tank that makes the the endocannabinoid system is the highway, the mandanoids are kind of the driver, the cannabis is kind of the cannabinoids, or the strains are kind of the the passenger, but the person that really lands the bird, the person that really gets right to that condition, really the GPS of the terpenes. Why don't you explain a little bit about that and the options that we have?
Yeah, and what you all are looking at right now, these are more commonly known terpenes. There are hundreds of them, but these are more commonly found terpenes, and they are great for example purposes of what this really means. When you start thinking about that cannabinoid, right? Again, it is traveling through your body. It's sitting and it's saying, hey, I know where I want to go, but I need a little bit more direction. Those terpenes are helping them kind of like land the plane there. And so some of these terpenes, for example, you see the one, it says pinene. Look at the effects there. That means that particular terpene is a little bit better for those who have or looking for things that help with memory, or help something that may help with, let's say you had some type of skin condition that qualified medically. It may be something that you're inflamed. You need an anti-inflammatory, but you don't want to take anti-inflammatory drugs for your chronic back pain. Something with pinene in it might be helpful. But guess what? If you are allergic to trees, right? You're somebody who, if you went walking in a forest right now and you started sneezing all over the place because you're allergic to pine, guess what? We need to not potentially give you that one, because it's not going to do what you want it to do, because it doesn't work with you. It probably is not good for you. It doesn't make you feel great, right? So when you look at limonene is right here in the corner. Limonene is found in many different cannabis strains, but it's citrusy. It can go from citrusy orange to citrusy lemon, citrusy lime, but it is very common in antidepressants, just even in and of itself, anything antibacterial. That probably makes sense for a lot of people just based on citrus nature of it. That probably goes in line with something you may think. But again, what if you're allergic to lemons, if you're allergic to citrus, if that doesn't agree with you, we need to be thinking through those kinds of things, because in your highway, in your body, it probably is not the right things to do, or depending on the symptom you're trying to get to. If you are someone who is ADHD, someone who is already like high anxiety, we have to think about, is this particular terpene profile going to enhance the issue, or is it going to make it better? And so that's really what we're looking at. So for example, the linalool at the bottom, it is for anti-anxiety, anti-inflammatory. So for those who are very stressed, those individuals who walk around worried about everything, that person may like something that has linalool in it because it's going to help them calm down. The person who has ADD, the person who has ADHD, someone who just needs to slow their mind down a little bit and relax, stop racing, right? It may be something that even helps them go to sleep.
Sure.
That is how these terpenes work with kind of your senses. And Marc said it earlier about aromatherapy. Just think about what scents work for you. If you don't like, for example, tea tree oil, and someone puts that on your temples, it's going to aggravate you the entire time you get this massage, right? It's not going to work. You're going to say, please get that off of me now. So we have to think about what types of things really work for you, and then what the terpene itself is known for as far as usage.
And that's important, because when you're looking at the terpene profile for what's good for you, for example, if you have a situation where you have high anxiety and you have PTSD, pinene is not the answer. Okay, stay away from pinene. It's not a matter of whether you're allergic to it. Linalool is something that's more where you want to head. That's something that's there. I know on this subject, Elaine asked a very long question, but I'll try to summarize it. Her basic question says, are they removing the terpenes when they produce the vape cartridges?
No, okay, that's a great. I just pulled up the question too. Let me just read the entire question.
Sure, it's a good question. But I think that it's important to understand that each of these has a particular medical property, and it really works with the cannabis, with the strain, to be able to address your particular situation, whether that's pain, inflammation, or whatever's out there. So go ahead.
Perfect. Elaine, great question, and I'm ready to answer that. The first thing you said is when you buy CBD, it's darker and you feel like that has a lot more of kind of that plant material. And vapes that you buy or that you see, they're clear. So there are two different types of vapes that you can buy. There's actually different types of formulas you can buy, no matter what route you buy, whether it was a tincture, a capsule, a vape, no matter what, as long as we're not talking about a concentrate, and we'll get to that later. But the vapes that you see that are light in color, it doesn't mean that it's stripped out per se, but it is a process to pull out some of what they would call phytonutrients or some of the plant material that would cause it to be darker. It doesn't necessarily mean at all that anybody is stripping anything away, okay? That they're stripping, to your point, you said, let me get a vape, clean up the cannabis. I'm not sure if they're stripping away the terpenes. No, none of those procedures strip away terpenes. In order to strip away terpenes, that's a completely different process, and that is actually completely different. That's how you make certain other concentrates. But things that are really for medical patients typically, or that things that medical patients typically use, depositories, tinctures, capsules, vape cartridges, topicals, lotion, any type of lotion, patches, no, those things are not stripped. So when you see a darker vape cartridge, though, just to answer specifically the piece you said, darker vape cartridges, that actually does mean that it is all plant material. It means that it doesn't go through a distillation process, and you keep all plant material. And because of the nature of plants, all the plant material, you can get darker colors, like, it can look almost black, it can look purpley, it can be blue, dark green, because it's all of the plant material, and it just depends on which strain you have. But it will be darker, and at times it can appear to be even thicker. That only means that it is full spectrum. That's the term, full spectrum, and is the entire plant is used, and it's and we go through the process of what they call extraction, but extraction keeps all of the plant material. All right, so no terpenes are stripped in extraction processes, whether it's the distillate version that you see is the lighter one, or you see the darker one. It is not, you're not losing terpenes. Yeah, you also may hear people give a term where they add terpenes back in. That does not mean that the terpenes are gone. What it means is that we are trying to enhance it. Yeah.
That's where you talk about the hybrids, where they're trying to produce a particular type of product to address a particular medical situation. Let's talk about a few of these. let's talk about what I call the top 5 that are out there. You want to take this?
Sure. So very similar to the other slide, but you get the chance to see what they're really used for. And I'm just going to call this one CAR. Pretty long name there. I just always call it CAR.
Caryophyllene is how they pronounce it. It's not easy.
I'm just going to call it CAR. That's what I do all the time.
It took me 3 years to figure out how to pronounce this one.
So what is interesting about these is most of the terpenes, especially you see it says it's peppery, it's woody. I just want you to know that when it comes to a taste, because you may say, God, it's peppery, I don't really want that. Only in a smokable form will you feel like, okay, I got it. I taste it. It's peppery. It may be a more woody taste. It maybe more earthy. That's in a smokable format. But this one is for stress relief. That means it's usually something. That's a little stronger. This one for pain. When you see that pain, anxiety, depression, it usually is something that will elicit a stronger body response. But again, in a smokable form, that aroma that you see, that's usually where you're going to get it. If you get vapes or capsules, tinctures that have this particular type of terpene in it, it's not the same type of experience, but it's the same effect. If that makes sense.
Sure. And this one is good for pain, anxiety, depression, ulcers, that type of thing. And again, when you're going into a dispensary and you're talking about the products, please feel free to ask the person behind the counter what's in there, and they'll show you. And there's also key QR codes on the side of the products that let you pull up the testing that's been done for it. So you not only can know what's in there, but you can know the efficacy and if it's a certified product.
And know this, everyone. Let me make sure that question isn't. Let's see what that question. Okay, medical marijuana. Okay. Anyone who is buying anything at a dispensary, because for many of you, you may be on here and you may already be a medical, or you all may already be a marijuana user, but not a medical patient. So the reason why medical marijuana is, so much better is because there's so many standards. There's things that you just cannot do versus someone who you bought it on the street or you bought it from somebody who grows it. You don't really have good context on how do they grow things, what is their process, versus medical marijuana dispensaries. We have to operate with some serious cultivation standards, serious production standards, and you have to have third-party lab testing on every single thing that's on a shelf. So even if it's not a QR code, you can always request to see the labs for any product that you buy inside of a dispensary, and it doesn't matter the company. Everybody has lab results that you can see, you can read it, you can see that, your product that you're buying has passed for any type of pesticides, that is passed for any type of microbials, moisture content, alcohol content, anything. So that's where, treatment centers and dispensaries come into play, because you can trust that what you purchased has been lab tested.
Yep, that's important. Now let's talk about myrcene for a second.
So similar, I always like for people to notice the also found in. Think about that. And that gives you some real good context on how might that smell? How might that taste? How might that feel in my body? When you see mango, lemongrass, thyme, hops, that should help you understand a lot about, what that may do. But you all see what potential medical value this type of terpene profile is good for. Insomnia, pain, inflammation. Those folks who have trouble sleeping, are PTSDers or of any sort, certain veterans, people who really have chronic, problems with dreams, or people whose mind just cannot rest and they don't sleep well. They're very stressed. People who have inflammation from all kinds of things. It can be intestinal inflammation, the IBS, Crohn's disease, uterine wall issues, endometriosis, fibroids, all kinds of things. People who have chronic hemorrhoids. These are the folks who end up, feeling like, hey, something with myrcene in it. And myrcene is actually one of the most popular the most popular terpenes in nature.
Right. And
Myrcene,
again,
the most popular.
Again, it's something, this is all natural. That's what's important.
Yeah.
This is not something that's really crazy. Now, limonene is another popular one in the cannabis world.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think we've talked, and I think everybody, we've talked about this one. But again, same thing. You'll find so many of these that are there. You'll see relaxation, any type of depression, anxiety, many of the
Arnetra, I think we lost Arnetra for a second. It's out there. Let me while she's coming back in.
The terpenes that you see, they will help with that.
Cool.
Did he lose me?
We lost you there for a second. We lost you there for a second or two.
Oh, was I? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, that's what the ambiance of doing webinars in Florida, where we have lightning, thunderstorms, and the power outages, make these webinars a lot of fun. Right? The good news is we're not in one room. The bad news is we're not in one room. Anyway.
I'm glad you told me. I didn't even notice. It didn't even tell me that, you know, I cut out.
But anyway, yeah, no, I think this is an important one, and I think it's something that is especially when you're dealing with things like pain and cancer. This is an important terpene.
Mm-hmm.
It's there.
And what's nice is, again, limonene and myrcene, they are very popular in nature. In many cannabis profiles, they do exist. Myrcene was a fun fact. It is one of the most prominent in the cannabis, in medical marijuana. It's one of the most popular terpenes. But limonene you will find in just about everything in some amount or another.
Right, one way, shape, or form.
Some more than another, but you'll definitely see it.
Yeah. Pinene is plus good news and bad news with pinene. So you want to touch that one? Somebody
was writing me too. So pinene, again, this one you very, very earthy, very much, again, if you are, and I say this because we get folks, you know, all the time, we get patients and it's important, but if you ever feel like you would walk through a forest and you just don't like that, we probably might want to stay away from certain things that have a larger terpene profile of pinene. But look at what it is for. Yet again, you see cancer come up again. You see anxiety again. Those are very popular. But then asthma, interesting, right? Because I know that there's so many people who are allergic, but these are the things that will help you with some of those issues.
Yeah, and what's interesting with this one is that you notice the potential effects. The nice part about it is this will counteract a lot of the THC effects. So if there's if you don't have a THC tolerance, it has some pinene in there, it makes it easier for you to be able to use those products that could address things like pain. The problem is that it also helps with memory retention. And this is where, in the case of PTS, this is where a lot of times you're trying to not necessarily suppress it, but you don't necessarily want to bring up a lot of those particular situations. It also has to do somewhat with anxiety as well. You have to be careful about making sure that you have that memory retention doesn't become something that's an issue that's here. But this is a very important and a very active, and usually something that a lot of people are very open to and helps them quite a bit.
Yeah, and when we start talking about things that help counteract THC, a little bit more about what that can mean is if someone's in a situation where they think maybe a dosage for them may have been too high, and pardon the pun on that, but maybe a better term may be the THC content may have been too strong for them, we can find other items that can help you pull it back down very quickly. So if we have something that has a little bit more pinene in it, and that's kind of your backup, just in case something is a little too strong, you can counteract that THC with a little bit more of maybe a CBD product that has a little bit more pinene in it that can help you pull yourself back out of that strong feeling.
Right. And linalool, it's very important.
And I think this one, just like lavender, I think everybody probably listening can think through that one and say, anything with lavender in it, you're probably gonna feel good, unless you just hate that smell, right? You're gonna probably feel very nice. It's gonna help you, relaxes you. Lavender is used in almost every spa across the country, across the world.
There was one question that Helen asked, Helena, excuse me, I didn't reach the E at the end. It says, can medical marijuana help the immune system for those with autoimmune disorders and diseases? I think linalool is one of those things that helps with that.
Yes. And the other part to answer that is it really depends on, and either it's Helen or Helene, it really depends on what type of autoimmune issue you have, because there's so many different ones. The folks who have lupus, to multiple sclerosis, to all types of other issues, and it depends on what you have. But we have so many patients who fall into that category, but their combination of what we give is so customized based on what their symptom is, because it's not always the main disease. It is literally what symptom are they trying to get rid of? What is causing them a problem?
I think the answer is yes, but it's very important, again, that you work with your dispensary. You talk to them, like you said, to tune it in, and also your doctor. I mean, there's a lot of people who ask me, I mean, I work with a lot of medical marijuana doctors, but I work primarily with the medical marijuana treatment clinics, MMTC. We have 25 clinics throughout Florida, so they're easy to find. But the main reason I work with them, I should say, is that they have a dosing center. You can call them if you're a patient of theirs. You can call them and you can get help with your dosing. You can get a lot of answers to your questions. And by the way, the dispensary personnel, if you're at a dispensary and they need help with some doctor's counsel, you can make a call right to them and you can bring the doctor into it. So that what I call the holy trinity of your getting your life back, the doctor, the dispensary, and you. That's really, really important. So pay attention to your body. Your body will be the best barometer as to what works and doesn't work. There's a lot of people who give you theory. There's a lot of people who talk about what's out there. But when you take something, you'll know if it works or it doesn't work. And you'll be able to respond to that. And follow your body. I found that following my body is the best way to go. Not that I don't listen to the experts. They kind of guide me to where I should be. But to really get into exactly how my exact regime, that's what's out there. Now, the question also comes up is, how do you take it? When I first got in this business, I started thinking, well, maybe everybody's going to smoke a joint on the front porch. That's really not the case. We're so far past that, it's crazy. There are a lot of different ways, a lot of different forms of being able to take cannabis, and it really helps you personalize your experience, making it easier for you. I think I'm going to let you walk through this a little bit.
Hold on. I'm also answering. I'm actually pulling for Wendy at the same time. I'm pulling some info for you. I'm going to send it to you in a copy and paste, Wendy, and then I'll answer it out loud. The standard dosings, literally in the state of Florida, because again, it's a medical marijuana. We have different routes. They give you a smokable route. You have sublingual route. You have an oral, they call it a sublingual. You have oral route, and then you have a inhalation route, and then you have what they consider to be high THC or a low THC. And I will tell you that probably most popular, I think most popular, says vape pens. Kind of know what they are. There's all different kinds between vaporizers and vape pens. You're going to feel that almost immediately because you're inhaling that, right? You're drawing it in now. And so it's a pretty immediate thing. And it's shorter lived because it's right now. Once you inhale that and you're taking it in right now, it's a shorter lived product, but it's something that people can do very quickly, discreetly. It can be something someone does before work just to help them manage their pain or manage their anxiety. It can be something somebody does quickly, at the end of their day. Then you have tinctures or certain drops. I think everybody sees that, whether it's hemp-based or medical marijuana-based, THC or CBD, tincture or drops. What that means, everybody, that's something that you put under the tongue. And it's important for me to say that it goes under the tongue and not on top of the tongue. On top of the tongue means you're going to swallow it. And that means it's just going in your stomach. It's going to go to your gut. The chemicals in your gut are going to snatch that. They're going to take that away. It's not going to work. When you put it under the tongue, you have, blood vessels, the mucosa, right? Mucous membranes under the tongue that are absorbing it. So within minutes, you're going to start to feel, and you all see that 15 minutes or so, depending on if it's a high THC, you may feel it much sooner, but it is going directly kind of into your membranes, going into blood vessels, going to be in your bloodstream pretty quickly because it's a tincture. And again, under the tongue, 30 seconds, no less than 30 seconds under the tongue. Then you have capsules. Capsules are one of those items that it is going to take much longer. It's going to be one of the longest, time to work, but it's going to last a very long time, but it's going to take some time because you have to swallow that. You actually have to get that through your body. So it's going to take some time for you to feel the effects. Capsules are great for individuals who have a secondary form of medical marijuana. So someone who uses a tincture or a vape, maybe they use that first, and then they also take a capsule that's going to start to work, let's say while they're at work. I've got a long work day, they're waiting, they need it to kick in about 2-3 hours, but it's going to last them their whole work day. So their back can function, they can stand, they can walk, they cannot feel pain while they're working. That's what capsules, people typically use capsules for. I'm going to jump down a little bit to flower. Flower in Florida is one of the most popular forms in as far as medical marijuana. It's personal choice. It does not mean in any way, shape, or form, just want to say this to everybody on, it does not mean that in any way, shape, or form, flower in a smokable sense is better, or even to grind it up or whatever you're going to do with it. It just means that it's most popular here. That is going to happen almost immediately, but again, shorter lived, and depending on how strong or how potent a flower is, that will tell you how long it is going to last or how much it will do to you. If it's going to make you feel energized, if it's going to make you relax, if you're going to feel sleepy, if you're eventually going to be hungry, all those things matter based on the strain and based on the potency of flower. When we start to talk about patches, again, super discreet. It's something you can wear at work, but it's skin on skin contact, right? Skin, one of the largest pores in your body is your skin, and the things will go in it instantly. So a patch is something that people use because they need more of an immediate medicine, but patches also last a very long time. So for those of you who need to use things that you just don't want anybody to know, patches are great options because no one's going to ever see it. No one's going to know it. You're going to be able to put it on. And some patches will last. You can leave some of the patches, they're time released. Some patches are more instant. And so you wear it, the entire day. So great options.
Yeah,
They're also,
I'm a huge transdermal patch person. Prior to this COVID thing, I did a lot of traveling around. I was moving around a lot. And it was very hard to be able to, my regime is in the morning, I take some medical cannabis in the middle of the day, and in the evening. With the patches, I was able to not have to worry about, that midday, I could take a 1-to-1 patch and not have to worry about it. This made it easier for me to take my cannabis, and I didn't have to worry about over or under dosing. It's very, very important. And it was discreet. Nobody knew I had it on, didn't know I have it on, that type of thing. But you're right, it's there.
Yep. And then the other parts, when you get into topicals, those are immediate. Again, they're going directly into your skin. And so you're going to feel that pretty immediately. Those are better for smaller areas. I just need to catch it on a wrist. I need to just put it on my arm. I need to put it on the elbow, a knee, on my lower back. Those are not for, I'm not trying to fix my whole body, right? With topicals. But those are for more concentrated, smaller areas that you're trying to work with. And again, almost immediately, but they are shorter lived because of the immediacy of it. Okay.
And you can mix and match these things. For example, in the morning when I wake up, I take a sublingual drop. Literally, when I get out of bed, I have sublingual drops and I take some of those. But that's going to take, in my particular case, it takes about 20 to 25 minutes to work. And I've got a pain level of a 7 or an 8. So right next to my sublingual drop is a vape pen. and I literally take 1 or 2 hits out of my vape pen, and my pain level will go from a 7 or an 8 literally down to a 1 within 2 minutes. And that's important, because what I'm able to do is I'm able to use the vape pen for the short-term relief that I need. It's not going to last as long. It's only going to last 2 to 4 hours, but it lasts long enough for my sublingual drops to kick in to be able to take over and work with that. So there, you can put these together into what I call a regime, a workout regime, to help you be able to get your cannabis that you need, and in the forms that make it easier for you to take.
Mm-hmm. And then if you get into, when you see edibles and then crumble, shatter, edibles, those are definitely things that maybe in the medical marijuana world, or in just marijuana world in general, those are typically used as more fun items. But can they be used by medical patients? Yes. Is that as popular in Florida? No. People do make edibles, and edibles are sold in medical marijuana dispensaries, but not as much as, say, a recreational market. However, edibles, this is something that, we talk about in every webinar and every training session that I do, even in dispensaries or either as I talk to patients. Edibles, you have to be very clear about what is in an edible, because you don't have a dosing. There's no instructions, especially when it's not, especially when it's not from a dispensary. There's no instructions on there. So you don't understand the potency. You may know that there's marijuana in your edible, or there's certain types, there's certain like the liter amount, in there. But what you don't, there's some unknowns, and some of the unknowns are, you may not know exactly what strain is in that edible. You may not know how potent something is. You don't know the process that they went through to get it in an edible form. Is it ground flower? Is it liquid as far as extracted? Is it a concentrate that's mixed in your edible? So it's really important, because that can go awry. I'm just going to say that can go a little off the rails if you are not sure what is in it. And I think Marc has a funny story about how that can go off the rails.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. In the case of edibles, they really are effective, especially for senior citizens. My mother is a person who we decided to try to use edibles, and we knew what was in it. We knew what was being put in there. We didn't make them ourselves. We got it from a third party. She lives in California, so we were able to get some edibles out there. But I have a Portuguese Italian mother who has the patience of a gnat. And we told her to take a little quarter of the brownie and to wait, 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll see what was going on. Well, after 5 minutes, when it didn't work, Mom took more. And Mom ended up eating the whole brownie within 15 minutes. Well, guess what happened an hour later when it all kicked in? She just felt great. She called me up on the phone and said, "Yeah, I feel great. I don't know what's going on, but," and I actually called my brother to go over and see her. And he called me back and said, "Hey, Mom's baked. Mom is clearly taking too much." And that's what I'm saying. You got to be very careful with these things, especially edibles. Have patience. Okay, that's when they say it takes 15 minutes or 40 minutes to kick in. Give it the 15 minutes or 40 seconds. It'll work. It's your body. Let your body do its job. And if you need something more immediate, then go to the vape pens. But let that particular dosing form really work and help you that's out there.
Yeah.
My mother didn't make that mistake again, but she carries them around with her. I mean, this is her deal, man. She's the edible queen. So
hysterical.
And she's in remission from breast cancer. So God bless her.
Yeah. And then we got a question about the difference between crumble and shatter. Definitely want to help you with that. And then Wendy, I do have a response for you as well. Shatter is first, and then you get crumble. So you can almost make the shatter, and then you can make crumble. Shatter basically is you still take medical marijuana through an extraction process. And once you do that, basically then you make shatter is definitely something where you bake it. You make it in a liquid form, that same distillate version of those vapes that we talked about. It's almost that same process, but you keep it a little bit thicker than if you were going to make it in a liquid form. But what happens is, though, it's more concentrated than, let's say, a vape. Because of when you do the vapes, you stop the process. But when you continue moving it forward and to take it to shatter, those are much more potent because it is in a pure form of just flower that has been extracted, and it is very potent. So concentrates in and of itself are stronger than other things that you will buy. So shatter is baked, and once it is baked, you burn off, whether you using a ethanol extraction, butane, or some type of carbon. It is glassy. It is like just imagine, it literally is like if you could say it was the marijuana form of shards of glass, but you use it in a concentrated form, and people then use it either in some type of vaporizer, or they melt it down and they can do whatever they want to do with it. Crumble is just the next step, and it truly is the same thing, but it is just changed in a different form. You do a couple more steps to make it, and you have to have a freeze dryer. There's some things that you have to do to it, but at the end of the day, they still are almost similar, just they look different. They are considered concentrates, and they are much stronger. So that start low, go slow is critical in some of these forms because they are much stronger than some of the other items on the page.
Cool. Yep. You were going to address the issue of, oh, by the way, on the crumble and the shatter issue, those are mainly for more advanced users. Those are for people that are been using medical cannabis for a while, and they know exactly what they want. They know exactly what works. I use shatter and crumble, but I mainly use it before I go to bed at night. And it's something that I didn't really, the first 3 years I was in this industry, I really didn't do much with it, but it just helps me be able to, again, home in and target what's there. I suggest that get to know what works for you, and then worry about the shatter and crumble type of things that's out there.
Yeah, those are definitely, everyone, for experienced users.
Right.
Again, nobody ever is walking in the door as a first-time patient saying, yes, I would like to buy shatter or crumble. That is so far down the road. That is not even something most people would be considering unless they've been doing this for a while.
Right. Now, you were going to address Wendy's question.
Wendy. So Wendy, that one can be tricky because, again, people with Hashimoto disease, it affects them differently, and so that is where the relationship between your actual medical physician or your endocrinologist, and then also your medical marijuana physician, critical for them to understand exactly your specific issue, because then they will tell you what routes are going to work best for you, and if you needed THC or CBD. And I would probably say someone will probably more in line with CBD for what you are talking about, but that medical marijuana physician will definitely be able to share a little bit more, but they have to be in partnership with your actual physician and see physician records, because Hashimoto's is very different in people, and there are different kinds of it. I saw which one you have, but definitely the physicians will be able to say what's going to be the right call to make there.
I think the answer is yes. However, the answer is yes based on the qualification that you work with your medical marijuana doctor, and also potentially with your medical doctor, to make sure that they get the right dosing and the right products for you to be able to address that particular situation. It's very, very key to make this is one of those care areas that's very personalized. So use your doctors to get it personalized for what you need.
Okay. And then I just realized, Elaine, you're right. We don't have pre-rolls on the list, but we're gonna keep pre-rolls in the flower bucket. So very, very similar to flower, still in a smokable form. It's nothing different. Is nothing different other than the size. So any of the flower routes, pre-rolls falls into that smokable flower category. It's just, dispensaries have already done it for you and taken the flower and ground it and put it in the pre-roll for you. but it's still very similar.
Great. Super.
Mhm.
Well, and by the way, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them. That's what we're here for. We want
Yeah.
to make sure we get your questions out, get them answered. Now,
And also just something to note, I realize I didn't say this, and I probably, shame on me that I didn't say that part, but I know that I said smokable flower, but let me jump back. Understand that everybody who buys flower is not smoking marijuana. There are so many other things that people may be doing with flower that they buy. They may be crushing it, they may be grinding it themselves, they may be adding it to food. There are all kinds of things that people can be doing who have smokable flower as a medical route. So smoking it is definitely not the only thing that people are doing. It's probably
I know that
50-50 there.
about 2.5 years ago, I got into, I started working with some people. There's a lady on YouTube, she's called Nona, I'm trying to think of her name. She's a lady that's 92 years old, started cooking with cannabis. And she did so because she had so many friends that needed cannabis, but didn't necessarily want to smoke it, they didn't know how to eat it. So she has a whole series of recipes that you can use. They're mainly Italian, and it's very popular. I mean, she's done a great job. And what she uses various forms of being able to use this flour. And that's where it comes into place. And there's a number of people, one of my friends, Donna Shields, who helped me do one of the webinars earlier this year, she has a whole program on cooking with cannabis. And that's something to really take a look at. It really helps quite a bit.
Yeah, and especially for folks who have who are caregivers of elderly, or folks who are not able to, no matter the age, they are not able to care for themselves. I'll say adults who are not able to care for themselves and they have caretakers. Many of them may use flour as an option, again, to cook with it, whether it's some type of infusion, because there are other, I'm going to call them apparati, that you can buy and have at home that you are able to crush flour, you're able to transform it into other forms, i.e. rosin. There's other things that people can do at home to mix it in food to help care for loved ones.
Right. Cool. So I wanted to point out, we're going to follow up this webinar. You'll get an email and a link that'll have a copy of the video of this, a video from YouTube of this particular webinar. It'll have the slide presentations, but it's also going to have all these references on here, so you can actually take a look at different references and see actual information, follow it up to learn more about it. But let's talk about Columbia Care. Columbia Care for a second. Tell us about where you're at and where you're going.
Yep. So thank you, everybody. And again, thank you for allowing me to join this evening. But again, I am the VP of Operations for Columbia Care. We have 14 locations in Florida. You all see all of the locations in green are open today. 2 more between Miami and Brandon. We will be opening probably mid to end of September. And then Delray and Longwood, our objective is to open those probably toward the end of October. I'm just trying to get through a lot of COVID and understanding, what's happening legally, what's going on with, if we're going to be masking up until next year, what's happening, school's back in session. There's so many things that are happening that we're just kind of holding on those, but those will be opening very soon. We are an organization who everything we do is around patient care, known for service. If you know anything about Columbia Care, one of our mission is to meet those unmet medical needs. And we have a pledge to take 1 million doses of opioids out of circulation. So that's a part of who we are as an organization. We are very medically focused. We are very interested in doing what is right for the patient. And so definitely come check us out. Again, those are all the locations. We sell just about every product that you saw listed except patches. We do not sell patches, but we do sell capsules, suppositories, tinctures, pre-rolls, smokable flower. We sell keef. We also sell, did I say tinctures already? We also are going to be selling shatter, rosin, crumble. We'll be selling those very soon. We also do sell vapes, and something that is pretty awesome We sell vapes that have no MCT. So all of our vapes at this point, we're phasing out almost all that have MCT. And all of our new vapes, they're only medical marijuana and terpenes. That's it. And we'll also begin selling RSO and syringes very soon as well, just to provide additional options for patients. Now, something that does make us a little bit unique is you see those boxes there. We sell products that are called seed products, Theraseed, Clariseed, Eliseed, and they are ratioed products. And what makes Columbia Care special and why it's so medically focused is that we formulate to a ratio. So every time you buy that seed line product, it's the same product every single time. We don't formulate it based on a plant. We formulate it based on the ratio that we're trying to achieve, so that anybody who buys our capsules, tinctures, or vapes, or the suppository in that seed line, every single time you get it, it's exactly the same product.
That's great.
Okay.
Well, good. Well, thank you for the update. If there's any more questions, please bring them up. I mean, we're kind of running to the end of this webinar. I think it's important to point out that medical marijuana is not a magic wand. You know, it's more like fairy dust is what I kind of describe it as. It's something that you take and it'll help you, but it's not going to be something that you take and immediately is going to solve your problem. And it's also very much like something that you would have. It's more like it's kind of like a vitamin pill that you take it on a regular basis. You don't take it and then stop taking it, because your body needs, your endocannabinoid system needs to have in it, it needs to have something, it needs to be constantly, your batteries need to be basically charged. And that's what cannabis is doing. It's it's getting into your fatty acids so that you do have the capability to produce the endocannabinoids that you need. But also pay attention to your lifestyle, your diet needs. Basic self-care is really important when you look at medical cannabis. If you're going to address a lifestyle medical condition, pay attention to your body. It's something that's really, really important. Elaine asked the question. Says Columbia Care needs to come to Tallahassee. I'll leave that one up to you, but the answer is that's a good.
I know. I just saw it. Thank you, Elaine. It's funny. We've gotten a lot of questions about Tallahassee, and it's so funny that when you think about, right, it's our state capital. There are about 10 license holders, 10 dispensaries in Tallahassee, and when you think Tallahassee's not that big, there are a lot of dispensaries there. So it's definitely something that's on our radar. But at the same time, it is, does it always make sense? We have to think about, does it make sense for us to be in a location? But thank you so much for that. We get that question a lot.
Cool. So yes, so the answer to your question is it's something that you really got to take a look at. It really take a look at your lifestyle. I think that's, if I can say anything, that's really important. Medical cannabis will lead you to that. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up a little bit. The question I have, if you have any questions, please bring them up. But I think it's something that hopefully you got an idea of what medical cannabis can and can't do for you and how it works. And like I say, you'll get a follow-up email that'll tell you, that'll follow up the information that's here. Please feel free to ask us any questions that you might have. And then I want to also mention that we have our next webinar next week is on chronic pain, and it'll be next Thursday. That's also out there. So, Arnetra, thank you very much. You've had some great comments today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, as always, it's been great to have you here. And I think Columbia Care has been a great partner, and we really recommend, please take a look at Columbia Care. I think it's something that's important. I think when we look at all the different options that we have, I think that being able to try different products is really important, because you don't know what's going to work for you. People have asked me, what do I think about medical cannabis? And I tell people it's very similar to if you're into scotch or whiskey or whatever, certain things you like and certain things you don't like, certain things work and they don't. But feel free to try it, because there's a great set of products out there that can really help you. So, Arnetra, thank you very much. And more importantly, for everybody tuned in, thank you very much for watching. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Everybody have a great night.
Have a good evening and stay safe, please. Thank you.